Let's move from the Thesaurus Standard Edition to the Pro Edition. And the Pro Edition is really designed to be that semantic mapping of a field, or the semantic definition of a field of endeavor, where you have rich interrelationships, many different kinds of access structures among all those terms. We're also going to pursue an expanded idea of what a term is. The term itself is going to become richer than it was before. So we're expanding the access structure possibilities of our model. We're also expanding the information type possibilities of our model. And with these expansions, we'll be at a point where we can now use our thesaurus for professional tasks such as indexing all of the abstracts of a discipline, or excuse me, indexing all of the papers or articles of a discipline, for example. All right, so let's look at the Pro version. Some things that are similar about the Pro and the Standard version. And I see that I'm missing, I can see right now on this screenshot that you're looking at that I'm missing the unboundedness on the term. And so I'll have to go back and fix that. So we have the Pro Thesaurus, and the Pro Thesaurus, just like the common thesaurus, is an unbounded list of terms. So we're still in that same world. Notice there's nothing in the thesaurus except the terms. So we have only the possibility of any relationships because we have only the information type in here. Information type is term. Whatever's going to represent the structure of these terms is also going to have to represent the access structures for these terms, because we have nothing else in our Pro Thesaurus except terms, except the information type. Okay, so information types, as always, as before, each one has an ID and each one has a name, so we haven't changed that from the standard version. However, we've expanded the possibility for relationships. We've also expanded the possibility for bulk inside the term itself. Let's start with the scope notes. And you can see this term scope notes, by the way, as far as I'm concerned, is no different than what we've been calling description. Scope notes is the term of art inside of thesaurus land, but really you can just think of it as description. Description serves exactly the same purpose. And what is the description? You should be able by now to look at this definition that I have on the screen here and get the idea of what the possibilities for scope note are. So the scope note has the block model applied. You can imagine, and I hope you are imagining, what you're going to see if we opened up this block model. We'd see P's and UL's and LI's and tables, etc., etc. Right? We'd see that whole big block model. What does that mean? It means that the scope note can be large. It can be a bulk of information. So we've added the possibility of having a large bulk of information. And if we enrich that block model, for example, we could add images and videos and whatnot, we can turn each of these terms into its own very large and bulky information item. So we've expanded with just the equivalent of a description in the block model. We've expanded the possibilities quite a bit for what the term itself can have. Now, in actuality, we don't really do much of that. The scope notes turn out to be a paragraph or two, but I wanted to show you how easy it is to expand those possibilities. And just because you only use a paragraph doesn't mean that you couldn't use, for example, a bullet list in some case, or add a little image in there if you needed to, and your scope notes can be as rich as you want them to be. Okay, so that's scope notes. Scope notes is allowing us to increase the information type potential. We have that information type of term, and each item of that information type can now be as rich as you want it to be in terms of its bulk and how much body information it covers. Okay, the rest of these things in here are all taken care of, or all accounting for relationships and allowing us to build relationships from one term to another. We have three that I've defined here: broader term, related term, and use term. So broader term, what does that mean? That means the term that encompasses this one. So if I said rye, and the broader term for rye might be bread, and the broader term for bread might be baked goods, right? And the broader term for baked goods might be foods. Okay, so you get that idea? We can list each broader term in a narrower term, in a base term, and in that way build a what? I hope it just pops right out of your head. A hierarchy, right? This idea of broader terms is building a hierarchy. We list the ref ID, and what's this the ref ID of, by the way? So it's the ref ID of a broader term, but what is it pointing to? What does that ref ID point to? It points to the ID of another term. It wouldn't make any sense at all for it to point to the idea of the same term. It points to the idea of a broader term. If we have bread as one term and baked goods as another term, the ref ID here for in the bread category would be the baked goods ID. Okay, so here we have the broader term generating a hierarchy. And the question for you to think about is, what kind of hierarchy is that in terms of the ones we've talked about? We have referential hierarchies, and we have recursive hierarchies, and we have explicit hierarchies. What kind is it? And is it innie or outie? Okay, I'll leave that for you to think about, but I hope that it's not so distant at this point. Then we have this idea of, well, let me go to related terms last. We have a use term. Thesauri have this, well, let's look at it from the standpoint first of the function. The function of a use term is to give you a lead-in, is to give you some term that isn't really one of the terms we use to describe this discipline, but you might have it in your head. And we want to honor that. We want to say, well, if you have the term, for example, let's say we're talking about animals, and you have the term anteater in your head, and we know, because this is a zoological information base, that they're not anteaters, they're aardvarks, right? Or they're some scientific name. But we want to use the term aardvark. The term aardvark is the preferred term, but we don't want to not have the term anteater, because we know that a lot of our users will be coming in with that as an idea, the idea of an anteater. And so we would say we have a term in our thesaurus called anteater, and that term references you over. It says, see the term called aardvark. It pushes you over into the preferred term. It's a lead-in term. It's a funnel term. It allows you to go from something you know to the term that is preferred, or the term that we want you to use to think about this discipline. Okay, so we have the use term, and the use term is what kind of access structure? It's an association, right? It's a particular association, and it's the association that says use this term instead. Okay, now on to the related term. Related terms are also cross-references or associations. That association here is now to another term, and here's where we can put, for example, synonyms and antonyms if we wanted to, or we could put in there terms that are genetically related. So to aardvark, a genetic relationship for an aardvark maybe is, you know, animals of the savannah or something like that. Or really any relationship that we could think of, any named connection between two items. Okay, so we have those named connections, and the name of the connection goes in the type attribute. So once again, you can think of that type attribute as an enumerated list. It's going to be the list of relationships that we recognize. Okay, so there's our thesaurus. It's got terms. Those terms can be, terms are the information types, and those terms can be as sophisticated as we want them to be based on the scope notes. And they can also have two different kinds of relationships. A hierarchical relationship that's represented by the broader term, and really any sort of related or associative relationships to other terms by the related term and use term elements. Now, to anticipate someplace that many of you will be going in the future with this, why do we actually need broader term, related term, and use term? Look at the related term. Couldn't we just do away with broader term and use term and just create two more types? So we have a term, a name, scope notes, and related term. And the related term types are broader term, use term, synonym, antonym. Right? We've taken care of all of those possibilities, and we've cut down on a number of the different tags. I don't do that here because I want this to be a little bit easier for you to understand. I also want it to use the vocabulary that's used inside the thesaurus discipline. So I'm taking a little bit of a hit on simplicity, and in return I'm going to get ease of understanding, and I'm also going to get a model that more closely represents the vocabulary of the field. And we'll see this again in a little bit later in the exercise.